connection in order to do this broadcast. So what I'm hoping to do is share with you guys some of the spreads that I use for relationship readings. Hi, Story. I wanted to be able to talk about some of them so you can get an idea. So you can get an idea about what it is that I do for some of my relationship spreads. I think that some of these might be, hey Taurus, I think you're supposed to be writing. At least that's what I saw on Twitter. I hope I'm not distracting you. I hope that I can, thanks Story. I hope that I can share with you not only some of the spreads, but why they're important to me, what kind of situations I use them in, and how you might be able to benefit from them if you're getting a reading from me, or if you're a tarot reader, what you might think about these spreads. So I'm interested to hear what people think as I go through them, and I'm definitely excited to share these with you because I think that they're fascinating. I love spreads. Not only do I love spreads that are already made, I love spreads that I can make for any given situation. So sometimes you just have to go with there's a spread for that moment and let that be. And other times it's good to use something that's predefined in order to let the rest of your intuition flow in a free space. Although that can kind of happen, I think, if you're using a made-up spread on the moment. But for me, usually I am more free if I'm working with a spread that I already kind of inherently know and can go with, because it structure allows freedom for me. That may be a little too George Orwell, but same way. Story. I think we're discovering a lot about us being the same and how we work. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that. So in my last Periscope, I shared that there was a lot of different types of relationships that we have in our day-to-day, not just the ones that we think of normally. So when people come to me for relationship readings, often it's about the romantic relationship, right? It's the one we're looking for, the one we're currently in, the one we're struggling to get out of, all of those types of romantic relationships. But we also have work relationships, peer-to-peer, whatever you would, managerial, directorial, executive relationships, or subordinate relationships, or direct report relationships in the work environment. We also have no role power relationships that we try and navigate, and I think those are also important, especially someone who's been a project manager. When you navigate those relationships that have no role power and yet need to have some sort of outcome, you navigate those in a different way than you would when role power is involved, whether above or below or peer-to-peer. So work relationships, I think, are fascinating, and the different types of work relationships we have. And then outside of that, it's just, all of those friendship types of relationships or acquaintance relationships that we're trying to shift or change or understand more. So there's a lot of different relationships in our lives. One of the spreads that I like to use, and I shared this a little bit in my last one, I might have to get my water, is one that I don't really have a name for, but it's a bridge in the relationship and shows some hidden things. I think Queen said last time that she calls those shadows. Shadow tends to have a multiple meaning when we're doing readings. So shadow sometimes means the reverse or something, sometimes it means the hidden of something, sometimes it means a darker side of something. So shadow can mean so many different things that I just like to say hidden because I think it's a little more clear. And I think they can be true, Story. I think they can be, depending on what shadow means to you. So sometimes shadow means reversed cards to people. So for me, I just like to say this is what I think is hidden in the situation, something somebody might not be looking at or be aware of. So I like to use hidden instead of shadow. I think it's a little more transparent. Let me grab my water. I'll be right back. I'm in a weird place in my basement. Okay. So in this spread that I like to use, it's a fairly new one to me, but it's, I need to come up with a name for it. I had mentioned before, I had mentioned it before, but just to cover it real quick, I put cards about the person who I'm reading for, the querent, on my left, and the person that is the other side of the relationship on my right. So I'll throw down a card to show the current situation for each person, and then I'll throw in the middle a card about the relationship. And depending on what the cards are, I may end up seeing that this is a longer journey for everybody, or a more spiritual journey, something with long-term consequences, or a relationship experience versus some day-to-day, something that's going on. Like, is it a short fight that we're trying to get over, or is it really about the personal, intense things about people that can either match or not? So when I get those pulled and get a grounding of the situation, then I'll pull those hidden cards. So next to the card for the querent and the card for the other person in the relationship, I'll pull the hidden cards. Now, one thing I'll say about these two cards is I'm not digging up dirt on the other person. It's not about the other person. So whenever I do a reading about a relationship, it's about the person who's in front of me asking the question. So we're really talking about the querent's approach to the relationship, the client to the querent. It's not about what the other person is doing or where they're coming from. Sometimes that might show up for me. I don't talk about those things. I will purposefully make it clear to the person I'm reading for right away that this is about you, your intention, and your experience in the relationship. We're going to be talking about you, not what the other person wants, especially if they're coming to me and saying, so how does he feel about me? That kind of thing. You know what, I don't know, but let's talk about what your experience is in the relationship, right? Yeah, and I don't, unless the other person is there, and I've only had, I can count on one hand, readings where there were two people there who were in a relationship and they wanted advice about the relationship together, and even then it was murky. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. It was a long time ago. I was a much younger reader, and I was trying to figure it out. Yeah, there's got to be consent there, and I just think it's creepy, that whole psychic spying thing. And it's not cool. It's like staring in somebody's window in a clown suit. That hasn't been on the news lately. You don't do that. That's creepy. So then I have those hidden cards, and I'm talking to this person about, well, here's where your relationship is, here's where the connect is, or whatever the actual question is trying to resolve. And from there, then I'll draw a hidden card for the relationship itself. So not only do I draw a hidden card for the querent, I draw a hidden card for the other person in the relationship, and then I draw one for the relationship itself. So it goes even further into the relationship than just the people. So we're looking for more deepness in there. After that, then, depending on what the question was and what we're trying to resolve, then I'll pull some action cards. So sometimes I'll pull a card for action to take and a card for action to avoid. Or I'll pull 3 cards to determine what are the next steps that the querent needs to take in this relationship in order to achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve. So I look at it, depending on what we're trying to do, I look at that next set of cards on how we're trying to accomplish something. Thanks, Taurus. So that's one that I've been using recently, and I like. I hope I get to use it more. I'm kind of fascinated by it. It's actually, and if you're reading for yourself, if you're a reader who reads for yourself, it is actually a really good spread for yourself if you're doing your own readings on your relationships. It's one that I used. I talked recently, and I did a post about a breakdown that I had at work. It fell apart in front of the chief financial officer. I was a mess. One of those things that you just don't want to do. But I had reached total capacity. I couldn't comprehend, focus, take in anymore, and and I fell apart. And we got through it. But I wanted to know more about our relationship and why we got through it. Yeah, it's so rare that I have one of those stories. So crazy rare, and I was beyond capable at that point. So I needed to know why we successfully navigated that together. I needed to know how we were going to work together in the coming days. I wanted to know not like a future reading, because I'm not a future reader, but it was about how can we work together in the best way possible so that we can grow together in our relationship. And so I used this spread in order to do that for myself. So I really wanted to know what was the basis of our relationship, the nature of it, and how can we work more successfully in the future. So I asked that question for myself, and I used this, including the action to take an action to avoid peace, not the steps, in order to work through that relationship. And you can see me working through that in that blog post about, and I think it's called My Breakdown at Work. So you'll get a chance to see what that was like. I wanted to share it with other people so they could see. And I actually merged two different readings or two different layouts together. So I did that. But I also did a layout that was giving me a little more detail on the current state. It's a modified spread from another larger spread I'll tell you about. It's the transformation spread. So I took a card to tell me current state, the background of the situation, the behaviors or beliefs. Actually, I should more accurately say beliefs. So what was I hoping for? What was I scared of? And then what the potential outcome of what occurred was. So I was looking for, because I had a breakdown, what's going to happen now? How's our relationship going to change? So I wanted to know a little bit more about the current background, hopes and fears, and then the outcome. And that together with this relationship spread, Hi Dublin, was extremely successful, and that is also included in that breakdown post. So if you see those together, it might be something that you think about trying, about how you can throw two spreads together to get a clear picture if you need that many cards. Sometimes just having a couple cards is more than enough. As somebody wisely said, two cards will get you to the nugget of the situation, one will get you right there in the core of it, and all the other cards may just be mess. So if you're looking for something really tight, controlled, and clear, one card may be just enough, and you can get a lot out of one card. So those are two different spreads that I like to use, plus those two together are kind of a third spread, depending on how you like to approach it. So those give me some intense insight into a couple different situations. Some of the other ones that I like to use, there's one that I like to use, I've used for friends recently, and it's called the body spread. And it's kind of touching on chakras, but not 100%. It's one that I use when I don't know how to describe this. I want to say it's one I use when it feels right, but really I use it when I think someone is holding on to emotion or information in a way that they're struggling to release it. So I use the body spread because it feels like something's contained and tight and not coming out in a way that it needs to. So it's about providing the space for that person to open up, or at least challenge some of their ideas or perceptions about where they might be. So the body spread is, as you can imagine, it works its way through the body, and it's 9 cards, I think. You'll see when I count through. So the first one represents the head, and so you throw down a card for the head, and the head is really about what is this person thinking. So if you have a great question about a relationship and what they're trying to resolve, you do the spread for the querent. It is not for psychic spying on the other person. So if someone's struggling with where the relationship is, where it's going, what they can do to make it better, and you just get the sense that they need to know more about kind of where things live in their body, you can use the body spread. So you pull the head to see what they're thinking. What are they thinking about this relationship, or about the question that is being asked? Then you pull one for the mouth. What are they saying? These two things you might find are very contradictory, or they may be totally in line. It's fascinating to have what someone's thinking and what they're saying in a spread. After you've worked through what they're thinking and what they're saying, because there's a treasure trove there, then you can move into what they're feeling. So in the heart area, what are they feeling? thinking, saying, feeling. Once you've worked through what they're feeling, then you get to the gut. So what is their gut reaction to everything that's going on in the relationship or related to the question that they've asked? Thinking, saying, feeling, just that instinctual reaction. And that actually inspires, these two things inspire a lot of conversation about no, I'm not, or yes, I am, or you're right, I do that. This inspires some consideration and doesn't have a lot of conversation usually. There's a lot of acknowledgement here. And when you get to that gut reaction, that inspires some conversation because it tends to come out with some of the reality of what's been happening in the course of a relationship, some of the physical stuff. And then even more physical is right after you get past the gut, then you go to the groin, and that's the desire, that's the sexual attitude, that's the, do you want this person, do you not want this person, are you desiring something outside of the relationship? Anything that can be related to desire is that groin area. So it is suddenly very telling, truthful. It's very uncomfortable for the person that you're reading for. So you'll want to, if you're using this or if you're going through this type of spread with me, I tend to be cautious around how I speak at this point because it can get touchy when you're telling someone, hey, are you still having sex? Or I see you're having sex with someone else. What's going on there? It can get a little dicey there. So, and we're not done yet with this, but just a reminder, thinking, saying, feeling, gut reaction, desire in the groin. Then, once you've laid those out, and you lay them out in a whoosh, like this, so you would see them in a column if you're in a reading with me, there may be something that comes out of all of that. We might need to explore that column, and if you think about it, it's really, it's this complete structural alignment with the body, and it's fascinating to me to see how someone's sitting at this point. Are they sitting straight up? Are they hunched over? Are they stretched back? What's their body doing? And in addition, you might notice what my body's doing when I'm reading that spread too, because I really start to inhabit some energy and feeling in my body. My body starts changing to what I'm feeling in this structure. It's fascinating to me, and if you're a tarot reader doing this, you should notice what your body's doing at this point too. Then you're going to use 4 more cards, and depending on the client's dominant, hi Wealthy, depends on the client's dominant hand, you're going to determine, and you can ask them which one their dominant hand is, on the left or right side. The dominant hand is, what are you holding on to? The non-dominant hand is, what are you giving out? So you lay down a card on their dominant side for what they're holding on to. You lay out another card for what they're giving out. Wealthy, we're talking about tarot readings and relationships and how you can utilize tarot in order to support the relationship that you're looking for, going through, or trying to find a way out of. So I'm talking about one of the spreads that I use when I do tarot readings for clients so that people can get an idea of what it's like to have a reading with me, and for the tarot readers that are on the line, some spreads that they might want to take advantage of. So right now I just walked through part of one spread where when I lay down cards, there's a card for what the client is thinking, what they're saying, what they're feeling, what they their gut reaction is to something, and what the desire is. Not right now, but you can go check out the website and the link in my profile, and you can find out how to get a reading from me there. You're certainly welcome to find out more. So I was just saying the next 2 cards after those are the hands, where you lay down a card for what you're holding on to, what you're giving out, and then and lay them kind of where the hands would be in the body spread. So you've got this column of cards, and then you'll notice 2 cards where the hands go. Then you're going to lay out 2 hands for the feet. So whichever side is their dominant side. For the feet at the bottom, you'll have a card for where are you coming from and where are you going towards. So this tells you in relationship to the relationship question, sorry for the redundancy, where is the querent coming from and where are they going towards? Now, after you've laid all of that out, you can then start to look at patterns. So on the left-hand side, you might start to see the history of the relationship. On the right-hand side, you might see what's coming up in the relationship. Along the column, there may be interesting patterns that you'll notice that is managing how their body is functioning. And on the side that they're coming from and holding on to, there's something to be said for the cards that are in that tightly gripped space of where they've been versus where they're going towards and what are they letting go of. So it's interesting to see the difference between those two things. And then, because you can't be done with this spread, there's more to do. Then I take all those cards, rearrange them, I'll throw the major arcanas on top. Oh, it's a fascinating story, you're going to have to try it. Lay the major arcana on top. Hi, Brianna. Then order them in suits. So wands, cups, swords, and hey, Fiona, and what didn't I say? Stones, pinnacles. So once you've laid all those out, lay them out numerically up through the court, and then you'll start to see some other patterns emerge. It's fascinating to rearrange your cards and take a look at them that way. So that's one fascinating idea for a spread that I think can really help you give, as a tarot reader, insight into the person and the relationship through the body and knowing that this is the right spread for the right person. Or as a client who's trying to get a reading, I think this is a fascinating layout to request if it's good, if it's interesting for you, because it gives you the opportunity to work through the different parts of yourself and how you're approaching your relationship. So just to reiterate those cards again in that body spread, it is, and you lay them out just like the body is laid out. So what are you thinking? What are you saying? What are you feeling? What's your gut reaction? What's down here in the groin? What's the desire? The dominant hand is what are you holding on to? The dominant foot is where are you coming from? The non-dominant hand, what are you giving out? And the non-dominant foot is where are you headed, or what are you moving towards? So it's a great spread all the way around, just to get a sense of where you are in this relationship in your body, because it's about something way inside. And then rearranging the cards into into the arcanas and into suits and numerical order through the courts will give you an idea of the intensity of where the relationship is if you're looking at elements or dignities or numerology in a way that you may not have seen it before in the layout of that spread. And don't forget, the left side can tell you a little, the dominant side might tell you a little bit more about history, the non-dominant side may tell you a little bit more about the future. So look at it in multiple different ways, don't get stuck in the body idea. And I would hope that for the people who I've done this for, as I've done readings, they've noticed things that I haven't always seen. So it's really, I think, useful to give your client across from you, or if they're sitting next to you, which may even be better, we don't have to sit across from each other, they might see things that you didn't see, and it's worth exploring. In the tradition of Mary Greer, you might find that it's worth saying, well, what do you see there, and why do you see that? What do you think that is? And then exploring that conversation in a way that isn't always about you pontificating about what you see in the cards, because sometimes they'll see exactly what they need to see, and then you can have a better conversation. So there's that body spread. Another one that you've seen me use is Cages or Wings. I really like this spread, and I like to offer it to people because it's a simple, easy thing to do. And to be completely honest, I thought of it while I was listening to a song from a musical called Louder Than Words by Jonathan Larson, who's also the guy who does Rent, and he has a song in there called Cages or Wings. And I was in the shower and I went, oh my God, that's a brilliant idea for a spread. What's holding you back and what's setting you free? So if you're looking for some simple answers, or something that can create a spark of conversation, I think the Cages or Wing Spread is a great way to start, especially if someone doesn't quite know where they might want to be going, or if you're just trying to do some surface work in order to get to something deeper. Okay, see a story. Hi, lady. So that Cages or Wing Spread, I think, is a nice and easy, gentle thing to do, where that body spread is going to get pretty intense. I've already talked a little bit about the action options. I like to add the action thing to a lot of different readings. So you can tell I like to build spreads on spreads. I like to add that action to take or action to avoid card just to give some opportunity for people, because I don't like to provide a bunch of information without a way to use it. So the action stuff is important to me, the step-by-step options are important to me, and then I have a follow-up sheet that I give people after a reading where, and actually beforehand now, I've started giving out beforehand because it gives you a chance to check out the tarot kit thing that I have, which prepares you for getting your reading. Then during the course of the reading, because we may not be in front of each other, if you're looking at one of the private YouTube videos that I send your way for your reading, you can follow along and write down, there's a space for notes, you can write down the action items you hear during the course of the reading, because I do spit out action items during the course, and then there's an opportunity to start to figure out, of those action items, what are the things you actually need to do in order to make them happen. So I have that for you if you're getting a reading with me, and I hope if you're getting one with me, I hope you ask for it. I'd love to share it with you. It's easy. It's an easy to use worksheet, and it just kind of helps guide you through how to make the best use of your reading, because I don't want it to be useless for you. I want you to be able to do something with what we're talking about. And let's get to the bigger spread in just a minute. That Hegel spread, the transformation one. I've got one more I want to tell you about. It's called Block, Background, and Beliefs. This is similar to the one I mentioned a little while ago, where I use a current, background, beliefs, which is like hopes and fears if you're using a Celtic cross spread, and then an outcome. So I like to use that for relationships, because it tells me the gist of a situation, validates what's come before, talks about what may be scary, or what the dreamy dream world is for the relationship, and so we can get into using probably a more ad hoc spread in order to address some of the stuff that comes up during that conversation. I usually do that if we're struggling to find the best question. But the block, backgrounds, beliefs takes that idea and gives me the current. I'll throw a card across the current that shows me what's blocking the person from achieving whatever it is they're trying to achieve. So when we have a good question, I'll also include a card for the block, because often people don't know what's in their way. Happens to me all the time. I don't know what's in my way. Sometimes I need to think through how to get past what's in my way, which is usually me, if we're going to be honest. But that block card will help you understand some of what of you is in your way, so that you can work on moving it forward. So I really like to utilize that. It's really it's just a modified bit there. Now, this Hegel spread, Rachel Pollack came up with it. If anybody hasn't seen Angelo's recent interview with Rachel Pollack, and I can't remember the artist's name, but they're working on a new deck. It's fascinating. Go on YouTube, search for Angelo and his tarot interview with Rachel Pollack. It's awesome. Maybe if you're not a tarot reader, it may not be awesome. If you're a tarot reader and you're into some of the history and how things work in cards, go check that out. It's fascinating. So Rachel created this spread in order to make something magical that works with the handle deck. And you can use it with any deck, I think, but it is a natural with it. I love this deck anyway, but it's a natural with it. So what you do is you break out your deck into majors, courts, and the rest of the minors. Shuffle those all individually in their groups, And you're going to start with the minors, and you're going to lay out the basic 4 cards: current, background, beliefs, potential outcome, related to whatever the relationship question is. Now the rest of this is going to get really specific. Now, and the reason I like to use this spread, because that sounds like something you're used to, those 4 cards. The reason I like to use this spread is it's going to pull up the way things have worked for the querent for a long time. So the way they approach their relationships, the way they might want to think about how they should approach their relationships, and who can help get them there. So now that we've used the minor arcana to explore the situation related to the question and whatever that relationship is, then I want to work with you with the majors in order to think through your overarching spiritual journey. So first we're going to lay out this kind of like 4 card spread with those minors. Then I'm going to lay out 3 more on top: your spiritual history, spiritual kind of current spiritual state, and then where you might be headed spiritually. And what that'll tell me when I'm using this for relationships is really how you've approached relationships in the past, how you approach them today, and what kinds of things you might want to think about in order to approach them in the future. It gives a real deep insight into how you're managing your relationship today. And when there's a clear question related to the relationship, it can get really intense at this point. It gets really deep into how you are managing your relationship. And it gets very personal, because it starts to bring up past hurts or past successes. It starts to bring up how you're doing those things all over again, whether you should be or not, and some really tough choices about how you should stop or continue, if it's good, those habits. So this isn't the type of reading, and we're not done yet, so this isn't the type of reading that is a wham bam thank you ma'am or takes 30 minutes and you're done. This is going to be over an hour discussion. So you've got the minors laid out there, 4 cards about the current situation and kind of what you hope is going to happen, and what you hope might not happen, and what's happened in the past. And then you throw up all of these other cards from the majors to see, are you really doing those things? Will you do them? What kind of challenges are you going to have, and how are you going to move forward? And then you grab the court cards and you shuffled those, and you're going to lay those down underneath. So what you've created in a pattern at the top before you lay down the courts is basically a rune, and that's why she called it the Hegel spread. It's a Hegel rune. It looks like this, right? Because you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 1, 2, 3. So at the bottom, you're going to lay out 3 more cards. The one in the middle, just straight across the bottom. The one in the middle is you, the person I'm doing the reading for. To the left of that is the helper, the person who's going to help you achieve this goal. And to the right of that is the teacher, the person who's going to teach you more about what you need to know in order to be successful. And if I'm butchering how she has these organized, that's the way the spread works for me, so I may have altered it a little bit, but those are the 3 at the bottom. What's fascinating about using this deck for that is, if you haven't seen the court cards in here, they're based on different cultures and different gods and myths and stories in those cultures. So you're going to get not only a whole wealth of information that comes from, as a reader, the knowledge of studying those cards in the first place, but then you add on top of it all of that folklore, mythology, history, teachings of these gods and goddesses and bigger than life archetypes. It's fascinating to see how you start to create the image of someone in this person's life who is going to be their helper on this journey and who's going to be their teacher on this journey. And sometimes they know where those people are and they're talking to them, and sometimes they go, wow, I haven't talked to them in forever. I really need to reach out. And they do, and things start to happen. So it's really incredible to approach this reading with helpers and teachers. Once you've done all that, because you're probably getting close to your hour at this point during the course of the reading, once you've done all that, take a look at the layout in different ways. Look at it from left to right. We'll look at it from right to left. So we're looking at how things might be progressing, how things might be regressing. If we're looking at the numbers, are there a lot of the same numbers? Are the numbers going up? Are they going down? Which way are the numbers going, left and right? When you start to look at the columns of information, if you go from the helper up, what kind of information are we seeing that the helper is helping to explore? From the teacher up, if you go up that column, what kind of information is the teacher helping to help you learn? And from you up, what is it that you're experiencing just based on those cards? So it starts to become a story of the cards that are lined up with those particular individuals, the helper, the teacher, and you. And then you can do what I mentioned in the other spread. We can lay those out in the majors and in the court and the rest of the minors together to see what's going on as far as energy, elementals, dignities, all of that stuff. If you haven't been looking at all of that already as a reader. So it becomes quite an in-depth, intense reading when you're using that transformation spread, because it's really about how do I move forward in the best way, and what kind of action do I need to be aware of, and who do I need to talk to in order to be successful. So it becomes a really in-depth look at how you're managing a relationship and how you can utilize your crew around you to be successful, to manage your relationship in the best way. It's a pretty intense spread, and you can find out more about that on my website too. I love that spread. I used it recently for a friend of mine who wanted to understand more about his job search. He had the opportunity to go for a job at work, and he wasn't sure if it was the right choice. And so we utilized this to think through what would his options be. Who did he need to talk to be successful? How did he approach job opportunities in the past? So we took this we took this in a different way. Instead of a relationship reading, we took this in the vein of how we could be successful. But the question was really about, I have an opportunity, should I take it? And so we worked through how he approached jobs in the past, how he should approach a job in the future, what it meant to do this, who his helper and his teachers were. He knew who they were right away. When he had to reach out to, and find, and when he was already in touch with and had a meeting set up already. There was some great stuff that come out of that in order to think through what kind of job should I go for, and how should I do what I need to do in order to be successful. It was really cool. So all of that stuff to say, I hope that you find this helpful. I hope that you will share this with other people, let them know that there are spreads out there that that can be really helpful for them if they're tarot readers, or if you're interested in having a reading. I hope these spreads sound interesting to you, because they can give you the insight that you're looking for as you're working with me, interpreting all of these layouts and symbols and information together in order to help you get to a space that is the most productive space you can be, and most comfortable space you can be in the relationship that you're trying to have. Whether it's work or romantic or peer or executive or whatever that relationship might be, I think that these spreads get me in that structural freedom space so that I can help you be the most successful that you can be. Now, one other thing I want to tell you, thanks for joining me today. If you're a part of my mailing list, you already got some freebies, and you also got a code for a discount on some of these readings. If you haven't joined my mailing list, then please feel free. But since you've joined me today, I want to give you the option to know that after a reading with me, I want to give you basically a 30-minute bonus. So in conjunction with the previous coupon, you can utilize this one too. It's a coupon code, and it's just MailChimp. one word, MAILCHIMP, and you can utilize that code to get a 30-minute follow-up. It's basically like a one-on-one. So if you're a person who manages people, I would treat it like a one-on-one to work through how you can work best with the information you received. So the expectation is that you would come to this 30-minute extra time after the reading with questions and follow-up and things that you'd like to, ways you'd like to approach the action items that came through your reading, and then we can discuss the best way to move those forward. Or I would give you basically 3 weeks of 1 email a week, just follow up, keeping you on track. I'm a project manager by day, so I like to check in with people and go, hey, have you completed X? Not, hey, how's it going? So I would actually check in with, in fact, I did this with someone recently. I checked in and was like, hey, did you do that X thing that we talked about in your reading? And nope, I'm gonna do it this weekend. Okay, great, let me know how it goes. Got some good follow-up, and I think this person has found some value in their reading, and that's what I want to give you, is value in your reading. So thanks for joining me today. Go check out that coupon. If you're interested in being part of my mailing list, you can check out the link inside the profile and go check out my webpage, and you can find out more about what Coming Out Tarot is all about. So thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you have a good afternoon. I'm going to go jump on Facebook for a little while and do something similar, because I have kind of 2 different audiences right now, so I'm going to go over there and share some of this good news over there too. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Thanks for joining me. Bye.